All right. Hi, everyone. Great to see you guys for our third workshop in the series for Google Analytics 4. Today, we're going to talk about setting up reporting. Thank you guys for joining us for the last two sessions that we had. We kicked off this session by getting started with Google Analytics 4 and getting everything that you guys needed so that you can migrate all of your data over and set up your new events and conversions. And today, we'll talk a little bit more about reporting. So I'm here today with Nicole Rocchio, and we're really excited to start. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about what we'll be sharing today. So we'll be going a little bit over some of the things that you guys asked about in our previous sessions. So things like measuring your audiences, their engagement, as well as measuring things like topics, as well as authors that you guys might have. If you have any questions throughout, please feel free to leave them in the chat. And as we're rolling in, we'd love to hear from you. If you can put your comments in the on the gather page, it's to say add a comment or ask a question. Feel free to let us know your name and what news organization you have. And we'd love to keep having your questions throughout the session. So feel free to add them in whenever. And we'll get them, we'll go over some things today as well as cover all of your questions by the end. And if there aren't any questions that we don't answer live here today, Nicole will be able to answer them. She'll respond to all of them by the end of the day. In case this is your first workshop with us, nice to meet you. I'm Tina, and this is Nicole. We are from the Google News Initiative, which is Google's partnership with the news industry. So we work with publishers and journalists to build a stronger news ecosystem to make information more accessible online. And so one of the things that we do to do that is through these workshops. So again, as we mentioned, you might have joined our last workshop. And so we do have one more workshop in this series. We do have our We'll hand it over to Nicole, who will recap a little bit about what we talked about last time about how the measurement is changing on Google Analytics 4, and she'll talk a little bit about how you can see that in your reports. And lastly, we will set up a little website for you guys on the Google News Initiative website that will have links to all of the things that Nicole has covered in previous workshops, as well as what we talk about today. So don't worry about taking down any notes or making sure you have the links. We'll put that all on one page for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tina. So just to reiterate what she had already mentioned, today is going to be the setting up reports. We're going to walk through the reports tab with you. We'll also kind of make sure all of your data is flowing in properly and a couple other things that we picked up from last week. So we're looking forward to that. And then our final last session will be on July 20th, and that will be all of our best practices. So that's going to be what's upcoming for us. All right, so to just give a really quick recap for those of you who maybe have not yet had a chance to look at our other webinars or watch them, there's a couple high-level things that we used to measure and what we're measuring now. So what we used to measure is total users, or what we would call goals. So total users were all of the users that were on your site. And now within GA4, the difference between total users, which was shown as users, is now active users, and that's going to be shown as users. So active users are, and there's an explanation for active users, but essentially the way that we look at active users is what the metric will be moving forward in GA4 that we're going to use. And you may see some discrepancies between the two data sets, between Universal Analytics and GA4. To touch base on this as well, because I know we've gotten a few comments about this. In general, these two are completely different data models. And while they are looking at all of your data, again, we want to make sure that we're careful about not trying to make the metrics match one-to-one if they're not. There are certain things that are a bit different in the data counting model within GA4 than Universal. And so there should be a change in some of your numbers. But we wanted to kind of let everyone know that there's no cause for alarm if they do not match one-to-one. The other thing to mention, so goals is one of the most used metrics within Universal Analytics. And now what we'll be measuring, and essentially like moving forward, everything is event-based. So sessions are now events, and your goals are now going to be considered what you would call conversions. And so that's something that is going to be different within the GA4 interface as you're starting to learn this interface and how to use the reporting tab. It's something to keep in mind as kind of a stark contrast between the two. One last thing that I want to mention is we are now past July 1st. And so all of you should have migrated or have been migrated to your GA4 platform. Now that we have that finished, we can make sure that you are looking at your data correctly, everything's flowing in, and then it will give us time also to figure out how to set up the things that are most important to you in order to measure. All right, so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to measure our returners and how to actually create them in our audience segments. And so for those of you who are not fully yet familiar with News Consumer Insights, it's a tool that we have designed to help you better understand your audience. And within that tool, we have loyal and brand lovers, as well as casual. But what we're going to show you today is how to set up loyal audiences and brand lovers, and so that you can measure them super closely within your reporting function in the GA4 user interface. Then we'll move through. This is one of the things that we actually talked about last week, was how do you measure authors and also additional topics. The one caveat with this is that because I do not have access to the GA4 merchandising account, I'll be able to show you what some of that data and information looks like. And then we also have kind of what we would call a dummy account. Unfortunately, no data in that one. So there are certain limitations that I have, and I'll have to walk you through a little bit about Tag Manager, because that's what we would recommend you use in conjunction with GA4. And then lastly, and most importantly, I would say for today, we're going to talk about how to look at the reporting tab. And so within the 4 tabs that you have on the side of your user analytics, there's going to be the tab labeled reports. That's the one we'll be spending time in today. All right, so now that we have all of that, we are going to head over to the user interface, and we're going to talk about how to create an audience. All right, so we're going to actually start here on this one, only because I want to be able to show you how to actually create an audience. You're going to head into admin, and then once you head into admin, this page will load. Bear with me as my computer is a little slow today, but you'll see here that this is where you can set everything up. So Setup Assistant is what you were using to make sure that you fully transitioned over to GA4. Property settings, property access management, data streams, which is where you would put all of your different data streams in, and then events, conversions, and then events, again, is going to be everything that you're measuring on your page. And your conversions are going to be your more important events. So just to briefly show you what I'm talking about when we're talking about events, we'll have actual event names here, and it would be something as newsletter or page view or scroll. And then once you see them here, you would be able to also then navigate into your conversions, and purchase is included in everyone's account regardless. So if you see that in there, that's why. And right here, you'll be able to see the conversions. So any events that you've toggled on that are most important and you want to see as conversions. The next, and where we'll spend our next few minutes, is here in audiences. And so what we have here are the different types of audience segments that you can create and then measure throughout your reporting. We'll create a new audience, and we're going to create this one from scratch. And so essentially, we're going to create a custom audience here. And then we're going to give it a name. So we can do brand lovers. And this is something we've reviewed before. But what I would recommend is pulling up your analytics account and walking through it with me, because I swear it's so easy. We're going to name it brand lovers, and then we're going to include users when session number. So you can just type in session, and then you'll see dimension, session, scope, session scoped, and then name, session number. And then we're going to add another filter, add a filter, and it starts on contains, but if you scroll down, you'll actually be able to see greater than, and we want greater than 15, and then apply. And that's essentially how you create your brand lovers. So then we'll save that. Once we save that, we can also create an audience, another custom audience. We're going to name this one loyal readers. You can tell I'm trying to do 2 things at once. And then we're going to do the same exact thing here. So we're going to type in session number, add a filter. And then this is going to be contains. We're going to scroll down here, and it's going to be greater than 2, apply, and session number, add a filter, contains less than 15. Or I guess we could do less than or equals to, so that we're getting the 15, because we did greater than 15 for brand lovers. Although it should probably be the other way around. You get what I'm saying? We don't want to miss any of those users. So then we'll apply that there, and then we'll hit save. So interestingly enough, when you create these two different custom segments, we're going to go back into Brand Lover. Oh, this is where you can actually see all of the reporting. Sorry, I meant to go into here and hit edit. So I'm just going to actually fix this with all of you on so that you can see what I'm talking about. Actually, my computer is slowing down today. All right. We're not going to mess with it right now, but I wanted to show you one important thing. On the right-hand side, it says summary. And on summary, we have users in this audience, and then it's 100% of all users, but that's because there's no data here in this one. When you create these segments, once you create them, you'll actually be able to see a summary of how many users will be in that audience. So essentially just double check that you see users getting graphed into the audience to make sure that it's working. All right. Okay, so now as we continue to scroll down, we'll see all of the other information that is within essentially your admin account. The one other thing I think that's important to review today is to make sure that all of your data is actually flowing into your account. In order to do this, we're going to continue scrolling down on the admin side, and you're going to go and click into Debug View. Now, I'm going to go and share the tab for the Google Merchandising Store, which everyone actually has access to if you'd like to see. And when you do that, you'll actually be able to scroll down here and click on Debug View while you're in the Google Merchandising Store. And the reason I'm doing this is because there's actually data flowing in, so you can see what it's supposed to look like for you. This goes by minute. And so as you scroll down, you can see, different things that are happening. And you click on this, it says there are like 6 different things that were happening here. And they'll appear over here on this right-hand side. And you'll be able to see page view, first visit, scroll, session start, view item list. Essentially what you're checking for in this space is that you actually see events coming through. That means that all of your tags are happening the way that they're supposed to. Now, if you were to scroll down here and you were to click into 203, you'll see that this is where you see all of these different events happening. And then you can click on that itself, and you can actually see the different parameters that are getting sent to your account, which is really important if you're trying to send over the session ID or something along those lines. And so you'll actually be able to then click into all of these different things that are being tagged along with your page view so that everything's being counted properly. Now, if you have something such as author set up, this is also actually where you would see author show up if you have it tagged. Okay, so in order to talk about author, I want to walk through a tiny bit about where you would set up your author or page author tag in Google Tag Manager. So bear with me for the next 30 seconds so I can explain it, because I don't have a Google Tag Manager account with fake data populated in it to explain. But essentially where you're going to go is you're going to create a tag within your Google Tag Manager account. And then within that, you're going to have fields that you would set. And what I would recommend doing is within that field name category, you add in anything that you want for author. But what I would recommend is page_author. And then the next piece of that after field name, it'll say value, and that will be the data layer variable. Thank you. The data layer variable. So that's what you'll have for both of those. And then once you have that set up, you'll be able to kind of go into preview mode to make sure that it's working appropriately. And then you'll come here. So now that we're here, and let's say you have this set up, what you'll want to do is you'll actually want to set up you'll go into, I'm going to switch back to the account that has no data so I can show you, because you do need to have admin access in order to change some of these things that we're working on. So once we're in here, or editor access as well. So where you'll find this is underneath custom definitions, and that's on the left-hand side. So once you go into custom definitions, we have custom dimensions and custom metrics that you can create. What you're going to do is you're going to go into your custom dimensions, and you'll create a custom dimension from here. Now, what you would do is you would create the dimension name, which would be page author. And then the scope is going to stay as an event, but these are the other things that you could measure the scope on. Description, whatever you would like to do. And then event parameter, so this here is going to be the field name. So whatever you put within the field name in your Google Tag Manager. And what I had recommended was page_author. And so that's actually, you'll be able to select it here if everything's, loading properly, but page_author is then what you would put in here. And then you just hit save. And then once that's saved, you'll have that here. That's as much as I can walk through how to actually tag authors in order to walk through that in this, just in the UI here. And so what I would recommend, there are absolutely a lot of resources online. If you would like that resource, please comment, and I'm happy to share it with everyone that is maybe looking to kind of link that. I think we also may have linked it on our last webinar. All right, so that is everything that we're going to review within the admin section today. And so now where we're going to go is reports. And the great thing about reports too, and I'm actually going to switch now so that you can see more data. The other way to make sure that you have your data flowing in correctly is to look at your real-time report. And that is here, the second report available, or the second tab line. So once you look at real-time, it'll populate all of the data that the Google Analytics account is seeing on your website or publication in the last 30 minutes. And so here we have this real-time overview. It'll tell you how many users you have in the last 30 minutes, how many users per minute. You can even like click here. It's kind of cool, the detail of data. And then it'll also do a breakdown of desktop versus mobile versus tablet. Now, the important thing here is there's, view user snapshot, and it's a random user's activity. You're able to make this full screen in case you wanted to like broadcast it somewhere. Edit the comparisons that you would add to this report. And that we'll talk about in a little bit. But you can essentially add comparisons here. And I'll show you how to build a comparison when we go to another report. And then we'll also be able to share this report. So in order to share most reports, this is the icon that you'll see everywhere. And you can either get a share link here. You can just copy and paste this and send it out. Or you're able to download as a CSV file, which I will also show you when we are looking at the other account that has no data. All right, so continuing within real time, of course, there are heat maps letting you know where your users are coming from. And as we scroll down, this will show you data, again, in your account over the last 30 minutes. So if you're truly just trying to get a snapshot of like what's happening, what's going on today, this is where you'll want to go. And in all of these, it'll tell you different things that are being measured. We have users by first user source. So the first time a user came to your site, like where were they coming from? The cool thing about each of these little graphic cards is that you can actually click into them and then change based off of something that you might want to view really quickly. So if you wanted to see source medium instead, you would be able to change that. And now I can see, okay, a lot of them are coming direct and none, or we're coming from, Google organic traffic. A lot of them are coming from the newsletter through email. It's really interesting to kind of be able to see where those users are coming in from. And again, first user, so the first time. And then we have users by audience. And so I'll let you read that. I'm not going to read out loud to you. But the cool thing also about this, as we're walking through it, a lot of these, anything that's underlined, you can hover over. It'll explain it to you. And then it'll also give you another Help Center article from the Google Analytics Help Center to read so much more information about that in particular. We have views by page title and screen name. And so you can see here what is the most common or most popular as users are coming to your site. As we scroll down, we have event count by event name. So these are all the different events that we're collecting, and then how popular they are. Conversions, all events that you have marked as a conversion yourself will then show up in this tile, also by event name, and then users by user property. All right, now that we've given a quick overview of the real time, I'll quickly talk about our report snapshot. So what our report snapshot is doing is going to give you kind of an overlook of this is something that is going to digest all of the information within your reports tab in one tab. So if you're trying to quickly look for something, but you're not certain where you want to go within reports or what exactly you want to look for in that moment, start with your report snapshot because it's doing exactly what it says, taking a snapshot of the rest of what's going on in reporting. As you scroll down here, you'll be able to see users, new users, average engagement time, total revenue. These are all things that you can click on to actually then, see or measure what you're looking at. As you do that, You also up here in the top right corner, this is where your date range is. And I always remind everyone to take a look at this to remember where they're sitting within their dates so that they know what they're looking at when they're looking at this entire snapshot. And of course, you can change this however you would like. We get to see users in the last 30 minutes. So this is going to be the real-time snapshot. So if I'm like, oh, users in the last 30 minutes, this is something I wanted to look at today. I would then be able to click real time, just as I would be able to click any of these here. And what it will do, it will navigate you then to that report within your reports. And so I clicked on that, and now it's loading the real-time overview. Now we're already familiar with this because I was just here, but I wanted to show you what the functionality was of that snapshot report so that you understand anything that you're looking at. If you want to dial in and really take a look at what's going on within that spot of the report, you'll just click and it'll jump you to that other report. So as we scroll down here, okay, so Insights. This is one of the cool new pieces of Google Analytics 4 for those of you who did not yet get a chance to watch the other webinars. Anything that has this little icon here, it's essentially insights that Google Analytics 4 is learning about your account in particular. And so what it's telling us here is just capturing some things that, it thinks would be most useful for you. The other cool thing is, like, if you do think it's positive or negative, you can let us know. And then it'll kind of continue to change based off of maybe what you're looking for. All right, we see, where do your new users come from? So this would be our user acquisition report, which is under here in lifecycle acquisition, user acquisition, traffic acquisition, or acquisition overview. As we scroll down, where are your top campaigns, or what are they? This is where you can see traffic acquisition, so that if you were to see that, some of your campaigns are really coming through on email or organic, wherever that may be, you can then figure out where you would like to allocate money for within your campaigns, etc. Users by country, we have a country report. How are active users trending? How well do you retain your users? We view retention. I think you get it at this point. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to head over to the left-hand side so that we can actually take a look at all of the different reports under here. All right, so the one thing that I will say is that it looks a little bit different if I were to share this tab instead, which is, I think, the typical GA4 view. What you'll see is overview, user acquisition, traffic acquisition. And so another thing here is within each of these tabs, within lifecycle, we have acquisition, we have engagement, and we have monetization and retention. Within each of these tabs, you'll also get an overview page of more detailed information of what's happening within just your acquisition. So if we were to click into acquisition overview, I'm going to go back to data. We're going to see it right here. So acquisition overview, and this is going to show you new users versus users, as well as users in the last 30 minutes. And the one thing that I wanted to now kind of walk everyone through so that you can see the difference between some of this data. If we were to go into, let's say I think we could do user acquisition. And what I can show you is essentially we can add a comparison or we can add a filter. And so what it means is, like, if you were to add a comparison, we want to include, let's see here. What do we want to look at? We could do device category is usually pretty easy to showcase. And so let's say we click mobile and we hit apply. Now what this is doing is looking at all users in blue, and then your device category includes mobile for orange. So essentially what it's looking at is your mobile users versus your all users. Now, if you're thinking, okay, this is helpful, but also kind of confusing. I don't want to look at all users now. I just want to look at maybe mobile versus desktop. What you can do is you can actually click out of all users, and then you can add another comparison. So let's say we wanted to do device category is desktop, and then we'll apply. Now what you're looking at is mobile, I believe, is in blue. Yes, mobile is in blue, and then desktop is in orange. And it's interesting to see sometimes the difference in some of the data. As we can see here, although it's grayed out, this says 727 device category includes desktop, but the same day, over 2,000 users came through on mobile, as well as seeing where they actually are coming from. So for cross Cross network, we're looking at device category includes mobile, it's 13,000. And then on desktop, it's only 1,000, which essentially means that your cross network, your users are coming in through cross network or across your different networks on mobile so much more, which is something that it's helpful for you to tailor to this information when you better understand how your users are actually acting on your site. So going back to acquisition overview, just so I can quickly show you everything on that, what it will show you is typically new users, first session. Oh, here we go. Oh, for some reason, it moved me. 1 second. There we go. Acquisition overview. All right. And so we're looking at a little card that says new users, sessions, and then sessions. And you can kind of, again, filter all of these for anything that you're looking for. This is supposed to be super quick and easy. Again, you can click the little links on the bottom to go and open them into full traffic acquisitions. And then what we're going to look at now is user acquisition. Now, as you can probably see here, this has changed a little bit because it says user acquisition, first user default channel group. Now, I'm going to quickly show you what it will look like. Although there is no data here, we're going to go to user acquisition, same exact tab. And the reason I want to show this to you is because you can actually also, when you're in this data, you can edit these reports. And so the one important thing to note is that if you're adding a comparison up here, which we just did with mobile versus desktop, or if you're adding a filter, which I can also show you, it's essentially filtering out. If you wanted to filter out all of mobile traffic, that's where you could do this here. But if you have proper access, of course, you will need, I believe, property level in order to share, and then maybe admin to actually customize, but I'll have to double check that one. You can customize these reports. So if you were to click on customize report, what it will do is it'll open this up and you'll actually be able to change a lot of different metrics here. Now, the reason that this is important is because if you were to change anything when you're editing the report and then you save the report, that will go across all accounts within your GA4 property. If you were to add a comparison or add a filter, that will not alter anybody else's UI, but editing the report will. And so so that's just something to keep in mind. Make sure you know about. The other report here is traffic acquisition, and I will quickly go back to this tab, and thank you all for following along as I'm switching between all of these tabs. But traffic acquisition will essentially show you where all of your traffic is coming from. And this will break down here into this graph. And I think that this is something that's really important that I want to kind of walk through everyone with is in the traffic acquisition and user acquisition, you are able to walk through more information within these reports without having to go into Explore and create a super detailed report. When you're doing that, I want to walk through what all the different things that it'll show you within this so that you kind of understand what you can look at. So up here, it'll kind of show you the group over time. And then here it will show you users by session. And so you can see what those look like. And then as you scroll down, this is where I will do a lot more of my digging when I'm looking for certain things. And so you'll start here with users. Again, this is the active users metric instead of total users. Sessions, number of sessions. You can follow along, but of course, as we kind of float over each of these, it'll tell you the exact definition of what you're getting measured. We have average engagement time per session, engaged sessions per user, and then as you scroll to the right, you'll also see events per session, engagement rate, event count, conversions, and total revenue. Now, the cool thing about these reports is that if you wanted to only look at certain events, if you only wanted to look at scroll, you can actually click event count scroll, and then it'll show you. So there's not a lot of scrolling happening here, but that's something that you can look at. Maybe add payment info or something like that. Here we go. Perfect. And then you can see, because it'll start from the most and then filter, down to the least, where the people who are adding their payment information are coming in from. And it seems that they're coming in from directly. Now, the conversions, you can do the exact same thing. Now, you'll have all events and you'll be able to select your conversion that you actually would like to measure here, because being able to look at the both of them next to each other is really, really helpful when you're looking at this type of information in traffic acquisition. Now, as we scroll down, we're going to see engagement, and we have the exact same thing here. We have engagement overview. Also, as a side note, I recognize that we're going to jump into the Q&A soon, but I think it's important for me to kind of walk through this UI. And as Tina mentioned earlier, if there's ever any questions that I'm not getting to, I will promise I will respond to you by end of day. So the engagement overview, again, it acts as the same as acquisition overview. It's giving you a screenshot of everything you can find in depth within engagement. As we scroll down, we can see average engagement time, engaged sessions per user. You can scroll through here. And then as you scroll down, you'll see views versus event count by name. I know that you all are very good at reading, but the other thing that I think is really cool is user stickiness. So that tab you can find in engagement overview. Now, if we go to our events page or tab, what you'll find here is event count by event name over time. So these are all of your events. Again, everything within GA4 is now considered an event. So if you're trying to figure out how to measure something, it will most likely be an event, and you can find it within this area. We have page view, user engagement, view item list, scroll, session start. Now, the thing in all of these bar graphs is that, or I shouldn't say bar graphs, I should just call them charts. Anything here you can actually search for. So if I really wanted to see, like, let's see something that is anything. Okay, so let's see if we're like, oh, I really want to see who's reviewing order. If I were to then search within this functionality or this table, I would be able to just pull up that exact event and only measure about everything about this event. And so for any reason you need to see something really quickly, definitely use the search function. It's super useful. And also one other thing that you can do is you can add another function of like filtering. And so if I wanted to only see platform by device. Okay, actually this is great that I am showing you this. So if there's anything that ever says not set, it's essentially a placeholder when there is no info present within your account. So that's just one thing to think about as you're going through all of this. Let's see if we can do country. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So anything else that you want to filter on, you can add an additional dimension, or like you can add anything to measure essentially within this report as well. So again, try to see if you can find the information you're looking for within your reports before thinking that you have to go in and create something custom within Explorations, because I know that that happens a lot. We have the exact same type of page in order to look and walk through, but for conversions. And so interesting here, we have include when conversion event equals true. So that's a filtration. Now, one other time, if you ever wanted to add like a filter to one of your other reports, essentially, if you were to add a filter, this is also where you can see your different data streams, if that's what you're looking to do. And so if I look at, let's see here. Stream name. Probably could have just typed it in. But anyway, if you have a stream name, you can essentially select that, hit OK, and then hit apply. And then once you do that, you'll be able to filter and then see like that is what your stream ID equals is X. And that's really helpful because I know that there have been questions before also about how do I look at my different streams within my account. All right. I think the most important page for all publishers is pages and screens, or sorry, landing page. Because this is essentially where all your users are coming in from. And so you get to see, okay, out of all of the pages that I have on my publication, this is the one that is driving the most traffic to my site. And so when you're looking at your landing page, again, it has a lot of the same information or the same setup. We have our landing page, and what we could do here is you could have, let's see, traffic source, first user, source medium. Amazing. And I wonder if they have newsletter. There we go. So if you're looking for your newsletter traffic, you could type in newsletter and see if anyone is landing on your publication, from your newsletter traffic by looking at it here and then seeing where they're landing, of course, based off of anything that you've included within your newsletter. So you can see how your newsletters or your newsletter campaigns are performing. Now, of course, you don't have to keep first user, source, and medium, but again, same information here. We have sessions, users, new users, and we know the difference between these two, but that's something to note that's a little bit different. Average engagement time per session, conversions again, and you can pick from any of the conversions that you may have. And everyone again has purchase. So if that's something that you've had set up, but you don't have everything else set up quite yet, you can always look at purchase and see who out of all of your readers are purchasing on certain pages, whatever it may be, and like where that is coming from to see who is performing the best. Now, purchasing, of course, is typically like we're looking at an e-commerce account and we're talking with news publishers. So our purchase events are obviously our subscriptions or donations, anything like that, but we can track all of that in the exact same manner. Over here, we have monetization. And I'm going to do a more brief walkthrough of monetization just because I don't think that we're not necessarily all e-commerce players here. And so I think it's important to know what's here, what you can find, and then move forward. You have your revenues, of course, and then your total ad revenue. So if you have Google Ad Manager connected to Google Analytics 4, you don't need to have the paid versions. You can have these connected. You'll be able to see the information here, kind of like as you scroll through all of this information. It just depends on like what you're setting up as like a purchase or through Google Ads. And then what you want to do is for all of you, publisher ads. So we're going to skip e-commerce and in-app because that's not as important for today. But publisher ads would be something that you would connect and then see where all of your ad activity is flowing in through. So as long as you have your Google Analytics 4 connected to your Google Ad Manager account, now that will happen within your Google Ad Manager account, but you'll be able to check on that in admin here. I'm just going to quick navigate so I can remind you where that is. If you scroll down, you should be able to click on Ad Manager links, and then you'll see if you have a link here. And I believe if you're integrating from a third party, there needs to be an additional metric of like impression hit or something like that integrated. So definitely take a look at the Help Center article if you're doing something like that. All right. I will say retention. That speaks for itself, but just so that you can see what's in our retention overview, returning users, new users, and then by cohort, you'll be able to see the differences. And then again, lifetime values. Lastly, we have user attributes and tech underneath the user itself. And so user attributes overview is showing you users by country in the last 30 minutes. By city, again, this is the overview. And then if we were to go into demographic details, I know I've gotten this question a couple of times, where can I find demographic details? And so if you're looking for that, you can users by country over time, and you'll see that. And then as you scroll down, you'll be able to see more of your data here. Awesome. And then last, we have tech. And I'm actually just going to go straight into the tech details so that you can see what we're looking at. But essentially what this will show you is by browser over time. Again, this can be changed based off of what you're looking for within tech. But it'll show you mostly browser information if that's what you're filtered on. If not, you can change this again, OS version, operating system, etc. And then I take that back. I'm actually going to show you the quick overview because it'll show you if you have app and web measurements coming through. And I don't know if that's necessarily super common with everyone here today, but if you do, it'll show you here the breakdown between web and app. As we scroll down, it'll show you operating system, device category, and then all of the browser information and device again. So if you're looking for this, oh, and the screen resolution I actually find to be pretty useful when you're trying to like figure out how to size certain things. Anyway, so that is the full overview now of the reports. Thank you for sticking with me for an additional little like 10 minutes, I would say, before we jump into Q&A. Yeah, I guess now we'll go through all of the questions that you might be having.
Amazing. Thank you, Nicole, for all of those awesome walkthroughs. And in case you missed any of that, you can rewatch any of them. Once this stream is done, it will also be republished. You can either watch it here again or you can watch it on that video, and you'll always be able to access all of the workshops from the Gather page. So if you need to reference anything again, that's all there for you. So we'll dive right into Q&A. So just to kick off, hello. And if you haven't added your question, feel free to add it in the chat. You can either, if you're on YouTube, you can add it in the chat on the right, or if you're on Gather, you can click that Ask a Question blue button right below this stream. So the first question that we have is, what is engaged session? So we talked a little bit about how the measurement has changed on Google Analytics 4. So there's sessions and then there's engaged sessions. So Nicole, what's the difference between the two?
Yeah, I'm actually going to just show you where you can find it so that if you ever forget again, you're like, this is where I can find it. engage sessions is right here. And then you just kind of go over it, but I'll read it out loud. The number of sessions, because I know it's small, the number of sessions that lasted longer than 10 seconds or had a conversion event. So anything that you would mark as a conversion from your events tab, or had 2 or more screen/page views, whatever it is based off of web app stuff.
Awesome. Yeah. And if you have any questions on any of the terms on there, usually if there's like a little like ... underline, you can hover or click into that and it will show you the definition. We also had a question too on what the definitions for all of the different terms like users, total users, all of those things. So we did link the support link in the comments here where you can see where all the different definitions for all of the terms in GA4 are. So if you have questions of that, you can look at that. We have a couple of specific questions around events. So is it possible to view multiple event count metrics in Google Analytics 4?
Multiple event count metrics. Oh, so I'm assuming, I'm going to make an assumption here. If not, please clarify with me in the comments and I'm happy to figure it all out. I'm assuming that you're talking about here, you're like, can I click more than one? On these reports that are quickly made, no. This is just like for one event count, unless you're doing a conversion as well as another event count, if that makes sense. So if you're trying to do that, but 2 event counts within this platform, not necessarily, unless you're going to like edit the report itself entirely. So what I would recommend is actually going into your Explore tab, which we will review a little bit more next session. But go into your Explore tab and look at that if you're trying to like do more analysis that way.
Great. And kind of a related question on permissions. So we did get one question around like sharing reports. So specifically, is it possible to restrict access to Google Ads reports or other kinds of reports to only allow certain users to be able to view reports?
So I think if you give somebody access to your Google Analytics UI, they'll be able to see everything within the UI, and they'll have limitations on what they can edit, from my understanding. So I would say that if there are certain reports that you would like to share, though, and this is actually perfect timing because I can show you on this tab here, if you wanted to maybe share reports instead of having them give or providing them access to everything that you're looking at, you could actually share this report. And again, no information here, but you can either share a link. And I know I showed that a little bit earlier in the video. So you could copy and paste this link and then send it to them. Or you can download the file and you can download it as a PDF, export to Google Sheets, or download it as a CSV. As for like kind of like hiding certain things from them, I don't believe that you'll have the ability to do that. I do know if you create an exploration report, which I'll talk a little bit more about next week, there could be certain like permissions there. But other than that, not to like hide anything, unfortunately, no.
Great. More questions about events. So specifically, we have a question here from Irene McKisson, who is one of our lab alumni. So how do I add events or know what events I should have? I don't see scroll in my account. How do I add it? Or is there a recommended list that I should have?
Great question. So to specifically talk about scroll, we're going to go into our admin. So if you want to follow along with me, or at least this will be recorded so you can go back and pause, where you can actually find how to add scroll is you'll go into your data streams underneath admin. Once you're in your data streams, you'll select whichever data stream you're trying to collect the scroll event for, and you'll click into that data stream. Once you open up the stream details, you'll scroll down and you'll see something with an event, or there's a box called events. And then within that events box, you'll see enhanced measurement. Now here's, because I'm in the demo account with data to show you, I don't have this toggle blue, but like typically if you have admin, this will be blue, not grayed out. And you'll click into the additional like settings here, or do one more. And so actually now I'm going to toggle over to the other. Bear with me as I show you these different things. But once you toggle into your data streams and then you see that events information, you'll be able to click on this little settings icon, which says configure enhanced measurement. And so now you can see the blue toggle. So if you click on this here, you'll see all of the different enhanced measurements that you can automatically turn on. And the second that you turn it on, you'll start collecting, or you'll start seeing that data. Now scrolls, of course, is specific. I believe it is counts how many users get to 90% of the page or 90% through the page. So if you wanted to set up a more like custom measurement for scrolling 50%, you could do that. But this is all of the enhanced measurements. Now, what I would recommend is turn them all on, see if they're useful for you while you're collecting your data, and then if not, turn them off. Now, one other thing, and I will hopefully make a note to remember to include this, is there is a Google Analytics Help Center article on recommended events. And so what I would actually recommend doing, I could say recommendation so many times, I would recommend actually going to that page, scrolling through it, seeing what events actually look interesting to you, and then use those events within your GA4. Now, as a news publication, there are certain things that I would always recommend kind of looking at, and it's definitely scrolls. It's, all of these I would definitely like recommend. We have form interactions, video engagement, file downloads, site search. So if you have a site search on your site, outbound clicks, scrolls, page views, of course. And then there are something that are a little bit more custom. So if you have a member registration, you should probably be tagging some events there. If you have a subscription, you should absolutely be making sure that you are tagging when they're like landing on your subscription page, when they're filling out their information and then purchasing. Same exact thing with a contribution and or a registered user. So those are some of the ones that are top of mind that I would think about. I would also take a look at newsletter signups or who have signed up for newsletters. So those are the ones that I would probably name to start with. And hopefully I didn't speak too quickly saying those names, and you can write them down. And I know that I will probably sound like a broken record here because I know that Tina and I have talked about this before, but because we are not the Google Analytics 4 team, I can, of course, answer the questions to the best of my ability, but I promise that Google will be a great friend to you if you are kind of confused about anything that you're trying to set up. I highly recommend using the Analytics Help Center, or if not, just like Googling for some videos. I've seen some great resources. And we also have an incredible Google Analytics YouTube account, and that is run by someone here at Google. He is fantastic, and his videos are super helpful to walk through if you're trying to do step-by-step things. That was a lot. I will make sure to include some of those links in the comments. But of course, please feel free to, edit your question if you have more.
Amazing. And I think we covered this a little bit, but in case you can show it again, Nicole, what's the best report to see basic website data like page views and total users in a specific month, especially for our publishers, if there's specific things that might be the most helpful for them to see?
Absolutely. Page views and users. What I would recommend is if you're looking for kind of like, well, I'll show you both. So we're going to look at acquisition. And then what I would say, this one's a little bit different because they've adjusted it in the demo account. But all right, so we can see essentially sessions and users here. So this is, again, active users. And then if you wanted to filter for the last month, you could come up here into the right-hand corner and you could do the last 30 days, or obviously you can very specifically like customize it so that you're just looking at all of June and then you're applying that and you see this here. So you'll see your users here and then your sessions. And then one other thing here. I wanted to see if it will have, yeah, hold on one second. There's one other thing I maybe think could be useful, but I'm double checking. You could go into your events page because you can look at page views here if that's something like in particular that you're looking for. But you're looking for like page views and total users. And so what I would recommend, really quick and easy, come into Lifecycle, go to engagement, and then come to events here. And then within events, you'll be able to see page view and you'll be able to see your event count or total users. That's the one that you're looking at. Sorry, I can only see one screen. Total users. So total users, 63,000. And then your page views right here. The one other thing I will say is, like, again, remember to make sure that it's filtered correctly, but hopefully it should apply as you're kind of navigating. So that's what I would say is the easiest way, is just go into your events engagement within Lifecycle.
Great. And a similar question that we got asked last time as well. So this publisher is asking, will demographics eventually include age and gender? So if you're not seeing age and gender, Nicole, could you tell us a little bit more about data thresholds?
Yes. So essentially, data thresholding is created so that we can protect a user's data or privacy. And so if there are certain signals that allow for these additional variables to be collected, then we'll be able to populate it. Right now, I don't have the most up-to-date information on that. And so I'm happy to come back and answer it. But essentially, like, because GA4 was created as a new platform with user privacy in mind, there are certain things that we will be able to look at or not. Now, if you were to go into explorations, I think you could pull it there. But within this, just reports in general, I have to double check, but I can update you. But essentially, that's kind of like what's happening. But you could probably go into Explore for it.
Great. And actually, we did get a couple questions about explorations. So, Nicole, I'm wondering if you can just walk through explorations a little bit. It is a little bit different than kind of the reporting that we talked about today. It's definitely more in depth if there's more additional things that you want to explore. So Nicole, I was wondering if you could show us a little bit more about explorations.
Absolutely. So within explorations, and again, we'll review it a little bit next week as well. Explorations is essentially where you can go to look at all of the different information that is as specific as you would like. And so, I just clicked blank, but I probably want to show you first before I go just into blank. I can show you the template gallery. So use this to figure out what type of report would actually be most useful for you. We have Freeform, which is kind of similar to like pulling anything that you want to look at within like a bar chart, but then you can also change it to other things, or a regular chart. I keep saying that today. Apologies. Funnel exploration, where you can see kind of like what's going on with your users as like segments and like break it down into step funnels. Path exploration should be fairly familiar from Universal Analytics, just looking at where their journey throughout your site. Segment overlaps, and so segments of users, how they kind of like compare. We have our cohorts and then user lifetime. So what I'll show you just today to start is Freeform, because I think that that's probably like the most useful at the moment. And within this, it looks like there's a lot going on, but let me just quick walk through it. And so right now we have the name. It's just called Freeform right here, exploration name. Then we also have the technique. So these are all of the ones that I was just showing you within the template gallery, and you can actually change that here if you would like to. We then have the date range. Visualization. So if you wanted to see this in a donut chart instead, or if you wanted to see it in a line chart or scatter plot, etc., you can change all of this information to essentially, here's the bar chart that I keep mentioning all day today. But essentially you can change all of this information to view it in whichever way you find best for your site. And then we have our segments. And so segments are something that you can use in explorations, but you don't necessarily have everywhere else. And so you can create a user segment for specifically based on users, or a session segment. So all of the people who are coming from X. And then this is where you can actually create this segment in order to kind of view this and report on it. Audiences that you used earlier is something that you can use within your reporting structure, but not the segments. Down here is also just like references of like certain things that you might find useful to measure as segments. Predictive could be interesting based off of what you're looking at, but this will be based off of all of the information within your account. All right, so once you have that, you then are able to add or subtract metrics. So you can, like X out to take them away. Or if you wanted to add something that you don't see here in this list, you could add it here. And so if you were to, let's say, add author category, you could add that to your metrics. And you could like type that in up here essentially to find it. But anything else that you're looking to kind of follow along with, you can kind of click on. So we'll import that here. And then anything that you want to actually like measure, you could take it, you can drag and drop into where you would like to measure that. And so as mentioned earlier before, based off of like some of the data, you're not going to be able to always know what the gender might be, or, potentially the age based off of just like what's available. And so you can use this within your explorations to find that information. but if not, it will come up as unknown. And so after you do that, the rest, just so I can scroll through all of this here, it's metrics, the same exact thing. Segments, you can drop segments once you have them created. So if like author or something along those lines, you can create that as a segment comparison. Or not author, sorry, but like other segments that you might be creating around like certain types of traffic within your site. And then you can change the rows or nested rows, however you would like that to kind of show on your site. And then we have columns, same thing. You've probably seen this before. And then our values. So we have active users or event count or anything else, again, that you would like here. Now, the last thing I will say with this one, or two last things, you can add another report right next to this and then have it all kind of sitting within one type of report. So if there's a couple different things that you would want to check, but you want them all together, this is where you could have that. And then there's also this ability to share these reports, and I'm in the wrong account, so I cannot share them. But if you were in that account, what you would be able to do is, and maybe I can quickly share this tab so I can show you what I'm talking about in order to like share. And you'll see I've created so many random reports here. But what you would be able to do is once in here, you'll have this ability to share or to download. And it's the exact same type of thing that I was talking about with just your reporting function. But here it will be in read-only mode, so you can share with others. And then if you were to hit share, anyway, so that will then share with everyone else that's going to be using your account. If not, it will stay within you and your account in your explorations tab. And that would be down here. I'll hopefully show you one second. Down here, this is, now you can see if you hover over the type of report, you'll see that it's like the ability essentially, oh, there's two people there. And so if you don't want that, you could also take it away right here. But it'll show you when you're looking at all of the different types of explorations you've created, whether or not it's yours or if it's with somebody else. And then you can also kind of like unshare right here, duplicate this report, rename it, delete it, open in a new tab, etc. Or you can delete like this here. And that's some functionality. All right, I know I talked for a while there, but
no, it's
back to you,
helpful.
Tina.
And we'll definitely cover more on explorations next week with our best practices. In that session, we'll also talk a little bit more about suggested events for publishers. Specifically, we've gotten that as a question multiple times, so we'll definitely recap some of the things that we've mentioned and talked about. If you're on Gather, you may have noticed that there is a little pop-up on the right here to fill out a survey. If you can just let us know what you think of these workshops, super helpful for us to be able to offer more workshops like this. So please feel free to fill that out. We just have 2 more minutes here. So if we didn't get to your question, Nicole will answer it in the chat, or I'll have answered it in the chat. So again, feel free to leave any questions that you have there. So the last questions that we'll probably answer today, one of them that we have is actually from YouTube. Which metric tells the website's traffic? So I guess you could tell us a little bit about how traffic is measured and kind of what the differences are.
Okay, I think I'm just going to take a stab at this. So websites traffic, what I would look at is I would go into your acquisition and then go into traffic acquisition. I think that will be the best. I'm thinking through your question to make sure that this is maybe what you're asking, but please also feel free to clarify. But this is where I would go first if you're trying to like better understand all of the traffic versus the users or something. And that can sometimes be slightly confusing. You're like, what's the difference between traffic acquisition or user? Users is going to be, or traffic is going to be new and returning users, and your user acquisition is going to be new users only. So that distinction can be kind of important.
And lastly here, this is our last question we'll take, and then we'll see you again next week. Do you set the author's custom definition as an event to be tracked on the Pages and Screens report page? So this is when you have set the custom definition of the author.
Let's take a look here what I would do. What I would do here is, one second, let me quickly switch and share this tab instead. What I would quick do, and I know I have about 30 seconds to kind of explain this, but I would actually go into your reports. And then once you're in your reports, I would go into events. And then once in events, I would actually edit this page so that you can customize the report and then drop in the author there if you always want it visible, and then save it. And then it'll kind of like apply across, if that makes sense. And you'll add it in here. Author will be here somewhere. But anyway, that's how you would do it.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. I know that was the last one that I snuck in there, but thank you guys so much again for joining us. Again, we'll see you again next week at the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. We'll see you to talk about best practices. We'll walk through explorations a little bit, make sure you guys are all set up for Google Analytics 4. But again, in case you still have the survey on the right, feel free to fill it out. And thank you again for joining us. And we'll answer any questions that you guys still have remaining below. So feel free to keep adding those in. But thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.